Next, we speak with three graduate students in journalism from the University of Illinois at Springfield and get their perspective on what it was like to cover the Illinois General Assembly this spring. We also hear how the tools of social media are impacting their work as young journalists. This runs about 20 minutes. Well, here we are, May 31st, what should be the end of the legislative session, and we're going to be speaking here with three graduate students in journalism. The political affairs reporting class, or part of the class from 2015. Nick, tell us who are you reporting for, and over this year, both in school and the last 4 months or so that you've been covering the legislature, give us your impressions of what you saw, what you heard, and the whole experience of covering the Capitol during the spring session.
Sure. Like you said, my name is Nick Swedberg, and I've been working for the Associated Press for several months. It's been a tremendous experience. I love the program at UIS, and I love working at the Associated Press. It's very intense, and I've learned a lot about journalism. I did some journalism work before I got here, and I've learned so much more just working with some of the most talented journalists in the state.
What kind of stories did you focus on?
I really covered a wide range of them. Originally, I was focusing on crime and criminal justice reform, but since then I've covered everything from the governor to various different pieces of legislation. I've helped out. Today I've written about 2 or 3 different things. So it's been a varied experience.
And let me ask all of you to chip in on this one, but when you came here, how has your impression changed, if any, from the time that you first arrived to now when we've ostensibly seen the official end, at least, of the spring legislative session? Let me just go ahead and start you, Nick.
Sure. I knew that it would be interesting to watch, that there would be serious debate, and the issues were pretty large that they'd have to deal with. But seeing how intense it has been, and what each side has brought and what each side has focused on has been an educational experience by itself outside the program.
And Shirley, you who have interned with the Illinois Channel.
I would say that through this program and being here at the Capitol every day has given me a firsthand look at how government really affects people's lives. We've seen people from all over the state come down and rally for certain services, child care assistance programs, daycare centers being affected from, that program being cut, even families coming down here with their children, rallying for that program to not be cut. And another thing I want to say is that, with Governor Rauner, a Republican, from him being inaugurated, there definitely was a shift in attitudes. Many lawmakers at first said that they were cautiously optimistic, and now this week there definitely has been a shift. And through debates in both chambers, there was a lot of tension, and even one House Republican lawmaker said he couldn't wait to, leave this building to wash off the stench of this place. And it definitely has been very interesting, and they're not done yet. They have to come back just in a few days to continue negotiating. And I think that they have to remember that what they're doing is affecting their constituents back in their districts. And that's what I've really learned, just a lot.
And I want to get Lisa, but I'll pipe in. I've been covering this place for about 18 years. You guys had a good session because of the new governor coming in, and that obviously happens rather rarely. This is the first time we've had a change of political parties in the governor's mansions for 12 years. Lisa, your own, who did you cover the Capitol for, or what kind of stories did you do, and how have your impressions changed?
Well, I covered the session for Illinois Public Radio, and it was a very interesting experience. I actually came here from Indiana, so there are quite a few things that are the same looking at state politics, and quite a few things that are mirror images of each other. So in Indiana, we covered right to work, and Illinois, of course, had that same issue, but again, it was a mirror opposite reaction. A lot of union support in Illinois as opposed to Indiana. So that's always been interesting, at least coming into it as somebody who didn't know much about Illinois politics. But some of the stories that I covered, like Nick said, it was a very diverse range of stories, anything from bobcat hunting to child care. That was my main focus, was child care funding, which was resolved eventually for fiscal year 15. There was that budget hole, but that was my primary focus through the first half of the legislative session. So that was interesting, but probably my favorite part of this is the diverse subjects that we get to cover.
You know, let me ask you, I mean, as journalists, your job is in the big picture of things to share information with your readers or listeners or viewers, and what do you think people in the broad sense, do you think people understand by and large what happens here and how it happens, or to what extent do you try to explain not just the details of a bill you're covering, but the politics behind the passage?
Sure, yeah, you're absolutely right. Our job is to, pick apart, analyze, and sort of interpret or reinterpret what they do here and put it into something that's easily understandable and digestible. And it's difficult, and it's probably the most difficult part of the job, because a lot of it, I mean, these are lawyers, these are highly intelligent people putting together complex bills that cover complex subject matter, and doing it quickly and doing it accurately is the key. So you have to really break it down and learn the ins and outs and why. I mean, you always have to ask the why question. What's the political motivation behind anything they do? Even small bills can have a significant impact in the political sphere. So it's intense, like I said before, but that's really the job.
How about yourself, Shirley?
Well, I'd also like to add that the audience, they're not stupid. They know what's going on. That's why they're out here, and they come down to Springfield and they rally for, those budget cuts. They don't want to see those programs for autism go away or for epilepsy, but it is up to us to share that information in certain ways that the audience will be able to understand in understandable ways, I guess I'm trying to say.
And Lisa, let me go to you. We have three different mediums here. So Nick and print, you're doing radio, so you're going to approach the same stories in different ways. But on the other hand, each has its strengths and weaknesses. What did you take from this?
It's without a doubt different to cover something with 500 words compared to about 40 to 50 seconds. So I would say that the hardest part is distilling these bills and these ideas into just the subject matter so that our listener can understand it as they're driving their car. Most of the people that we are talking to on the radio are multitasking. People don't just listen to their radio as their sole thing that they do all day. So people in cars or people who are at work need to just get those main ideas. So that was probably the hardest part in terms of learning to write about these massive proposals, some of which have very complex issues, and distilling those into 40 seconds and having the listener understand.
I was going to say, and the other thing, to put it in perspective, we may be covering a committee hearing that goes on for 2 hours, and it's easier, I will tell people, to cover something longer than shorter. To take 2 hours and to say what were the key elements and to snippet 40 seconds or 45 seconds out of that and to do it right, it is quite the challenge. Right?
Oh yes, I try to tell that to people all the time, that I often wish that I had more time or more words to be able to tell people, or just, all of the people who come out in support or opposition of these proposals. We can't fit them all into the amount of time that we'd like to. We can't always give all of the sides of the argument. We have to just break it down and cut it into short snippets.
And not only that, but to also make it sound interesting for broadcast, for radio, for TV. You yourself told me yesterday I need to spice it up.
Write with some spice, right?
Exactly. Yeah, to keep the listener's attention. Yeah.
What would you say, did you have any favorite stories as you look back on it, and to what extent, if anything? Now, Nick, you were already reporting before you came into this program, so maybe you already had that experience, but What were some of the favorite stories that you had, and maybe just along the way, was there anything else that you learned that you didn't maybe appreciate before you started here?
Well, as you correctly said before, I am a writer, and it's a little bit different for me. I got an opportunity to work a kind of a joke into an AP story. It was about the sweet. I'm sorry, excuse me. It was about the pumpkin pie and the sweet corn bills passing as state symbols, and I got to work a pun into the first paragraph of the story, and that went out to all the members that wanted to pick it up, and I'm quite proud of that, and that's something I always be able to look back on and think, yeah, there was my moment.
Shirley, how about yourself?
For myself, I would say it was this story on how gun advocates are trying to push gun silencers and make them legal here in the state of Illinois. And that was fun because we got to go out to the range in a rural community in Athens, Illinois, and actually test them and shoot the guns with silencers. And I've never shot a gun before, and it showed us that silencers don't actually even make guns silence. They just lower the noise level a little bit. Yeah, so that was an adventure itself.
I like any story where I can include natural sound from the environment. So all of the rallies that happen at the Capitol are always fun to cover. Like I mentioned earlier, I really focused on the child care issues. So there's a lot of child care rallies here at the Capitol, and it's always nice to be able to include people's real voices shouting for what they want.
And let's just say before we wrap up a couple of things. One of the things that's changing everyone in journalism is this social media. To what extent were you schooled on any of social media? To what extent, when you're doing a story, do you try to incorporate, besides the traditional forms, print, TV, and radio, do you incorporate tweeting or other forms of social media?
Well, I mean, like I said before, my internship was with the Associated Press, or is with the Associated Press, and they don't utilize social media, tweeting, Facebook, as much as other outlets might. In fact, they do have rules on that. So mostly it's just been kind of as a research tool. There are people talking about this stuff all the time. Some news gets broke there, and then we find that out and kind of go from there. That's an option. That's one avenue. But for me personally, I've tried to just kind of keep it fun and light and entertaining whenever I do actually tweet, or I just retweet what my boss tweets, to suck up a little bit.
Let me have Lisa first answer. And
I retweet my boss a lot as well. I don't tweet as much just because I strive for accuracy, and I feel like I have more options to slip up when I do tweet. So I try to avoid that as a medium, although I use it a lot to get news and to just see what other people are tweeting about whatever situation I'm in. I do use social media to share stories, though. That's a big one. So either my own stories or maybe other people's that I find interesting. I think it's a good way to share information.
And Shirley, who again works with the Illinois Channel, I would say I compliment her. She's a great tweeter, if that's the phraseology. But Shirley, tell us your own approach to when you use social media.
I embrace it a lot, and I think the younger generation, that's where many of us get our news from. And overall, I think we all embrace it. And the people in the PAR program, whenever we tweet out something that's going on here at the Capitol, we will use hashtag TWILL, TWILL, and that stands for Twitter Illinois. And that's one way that, we'll tweet out what's going on here in, state government and here in Springfield. And you've taught me a lot also about embracing digital media, YouTube, and that's another way that young journalists should not just embrace traditional media, but also, come up with their own source of, different media channels and mediums and Periscope and stuff like that.
I was going to say, and Periscope, which is brand new, came out. If viewers haven't seen Periscope, check Periscope out as an app. It allows you to live stream. I'll make this the last two. The second to last question would be, we all hear complaints about media and bias, especially. It's true, it's one thing if you're covering car accidents, but when you're covering politics, how do you try to maintain your stories from appearing to be biased from one side or another on a story?
There are basic rules to follow. It helps to, well, it doesn't help. You really need to get all sides of an issue, fully understand it, and understand what people are saying and what they actually want to convey, what their arguments are. Make sure you have all that together in one story if possible. Not always are you going to find both sides wanting to give their opinion on something, but you at least have to attempt to include it. And that's basically how you make sure that you're maintaining some level, or at least an adequate level of objectivity.
And Lisa, you're doing a small, can you incorporate both sides when you're doing a 45-second piece?
It is hard. Usually we'll only have time for one person's soundbite and then have time to say opponents say this or supporters say this, and then wrap it up. But in terms of my own personal bias, I would say that it's pretty easy to keep all of that out as long as you're looking at things subjectively, or and just making sure that you're not putting your own opinion into those stories.
Sure.
Well, I would say in general, you just have to have both sides, try to be balanced, and don't buy into, certain propaganda. That's it.
And as we close out, or as you all close out, I believe you're going to be already looking for jobs. I think, Lisa, you already have a job, as I recall, so you'll be moving on soon. For anyone else who's thinking about going through the public affairs reporting at UIS, or for that matter, maybe they did their undergraduate in something else, but they're thinking maybe they'd want to go into reporting, what would you say to them?
Well, I'd say absolutely consider the master's program at UIS. Public affairs reporting is one of the best, if not the best, in the state, in my opinion. I looked at the others, and I've been thinking about going to grad school for about 10 years, and this is the only program I really seriously considered going into. It's hands-on experience. You have classroom work. You get to see lawmakers every day. You get to interact with the governor. He shook my hand the other day and asked what my name was. He was trying to dodge questions from reporters at the time, but he did that, and you don't get that experience really with any other graduate program that I know of.
Well, for me, this was the best decision of my life. Prior to this, I was working in digital advertising in Chicago, and I was not satisfied. So literally, I changed my life within a year, and I can't wait to see what's going to follow after this. And I'm very optimistic. Best decision ever.
And Lisa, we should congratulate you for having a job in Fort Wayne, isn't it?
Yes, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I would say that this program definitely works. It does exactly what it's intended to do, which was to teach me how to become a better reporter, not just in the political sphere, but just a better reporter in general. And then it also set me on the path to what I wanted to do, which was become a public radio reporter. So I'd say for those reasons, this is definitely an excellent program to at least look at.
Well, we wish each of you the best, and thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll be seeing you in the national news before too long, but thanks again and good luck to you.
Thank you.